There can only be one. Welcome to Deathmatch. Last time on Deathmatch, look what happened to the loser. Ooh, that hurts. Bad. Today's Deathmatch is a bit unusual. In competition today will be two cameras. They are both made by Nikon, but they are in different market categories and use some different technology from one another. They are both examples of very high quality design and manufacturing. Here we have the Nikon 1 Series V1, and here we have the Nikon D3100. Both can be considered entry-level cameras compared to large professional digital SLRs, but at the same time, both are very advanced cameras compared to point-and-shoot cameras or the now very popular cell phone camera. I guess you could say that they are two different solutions to the same question. How can I get great photographs from a fun on-the-go camera and not break the bank? Before this deathmatch begins, let me get some ground rules straight. 1. I am comparing both camera bodies using their most popular kit lenses. For the Nikon V1, this is the 10 to 30 millimeter, and for the D3100, this is the 18 to 55. Both are VR lenses and have approximately the same 35 millimeter equivalent focal length. Rule 2. I may mention some of the accessories and other lenses in the deathmatch, but this deathmatch is purely based on one camera body and its kit lens. This is important to mention, and I am going to mention it again at the end in case you forget. Each of these two cameras has various accessories available on the horizon as well. Many more than I can cover in this video. 3. In deathmatch, I make the rules and form all of the opinions. I am not trying to tell you what you should do and what you should buy. If you are in the market for one or both of these cameras, read all that you can and also try the cameras out. What works for you and I might be something totally different. Okay, that was a lot to say, but I wanted to get those ground rules on the table before we get into the action. The Nikon V1 is the new kid on the block. It has a similar little brother, the J1, which uses the same lenses and sensor. The V1 uses Nikon's new CX sensor size and has a small form factor, and it uses small lenses, and it has no mirror. I posted a full review of the Nikon V1 here. Now the D3100 is a successor to the Nikon D3000, which came after the D60 and the D40 series. The D3100 is a small DSLR capable of big results. More on the D3100 here. Okay. You might be asking, how can this small V1 possibly be a formidable deathmatch opponent to this professional-looking DSLR? Well, let's get into the deathmatch and take a look. Right off the bat, the V1 is firing away at 5 frames per second. In fact, if I'm able to take some options away, I can use the electronic shutter to fire the V1 at 10, 30, or even 60 frames per second while maintaining the full 10 megapixel image size. The D3100 can shoot at 3 frames per second. Response time when you click the shutter is very fast for both of these cameras, but there is no question that when the action happens, the V1 can capture more of it with its terrific speed. Point for Nikon V1. Everyone likes to talk megapixels. Personally, I've always been happy with around 6 million pixels, which both of these cameras exceed. The V1 has 10. The D3100 has 14. Both produce extremely crisp images, so although there is little practical difference between the two, the D3100 gets the nod with 14.2 megapixels. Point for Nikon D3100. Both the V1 and the D3100 support certain accessory speedlights, but this deathmatch is body to body, so I have to play fair. The D3100 has a fairly powerful pop-up flash integrated into the body. The V1. Here's the V1. This external flash is very cute and effective, but it's sold separately. So for the category of onboard flash, point for Nikon D3100. Ease of use and menu operation is very important to me. Neither the V1 nor the D3100 have as many external buttons and dials as the more expensive DSLRs. Both have a number of options that can be set through the menus. For example, on the V1, I can set metering, white balance, and ISO sensitivity. I can do similar on the D3100 in the menus, but I also have the info button where I can see how my camera is set and make quick changes. One problem I have with the V1 though is that I can set everything in the menus, but I cannot quickly see how I have everything set nor make quick changes. On the D3100, I have two critical features. The first is the info button. On the first press, I can see how I have the camera set, and on the second press, I can make changes. This is not quite the same as having a button for everything, but it is close. I also have My Menu on the D3100. I can easily put my favorite menu items on one short list. This category is a little tricky for the V1, as one of the purposes of a quick, compact camera like this is to set and forget, as they say. In other words, if I take the time to set the V1 up for changing environments, like using adaptive autofocus and auto ISO, I don't find myself reaching for the menu while I'm shooting. However, I do love the info button, and it seems a shame that the V1 does not have this capability. Point for Nikon D3100. Let's talk about image quality. First, in well-lit environments and daylight. Both create sharp, artifact-free images, and both can be used in RAW mode, in order to squeeze more information out of the photos than when shooting in JPEG. Both can freeze action and create pleasing portraits. I could take either on a hike, to a soccer game, or to the city streets and come away with stunning images. In short, in most shooting situations, neither one of these cameras will hold you back. Point for both. When you're working in darker conditions, high ISO performance becomes paramount. All cameras suffer from image degradation in the form of noise as the ISO increases. However, a little bit of noise can be worth it if the shot could not otherwise be captured. Both cameras are strong performers in low light, and each has a high ISO noise reduction option. Compared side by side at ISO 3200, the D3100 gets the edge, but it's much closer than you might expect, making both cameras useful when the light gets low. Point for Nikon D3100. Autofocus and focus tracking. Both cameras have the basic focus options that we come to expect in Nikon cameras: single servo, continuous servo, and automatic selection. Since the V1 has no mirror and is always reading from the sensor while you are composing, it combines phase detect and contrast detect autofocus to create an incredible, robust system. It can track faces and objects across the range of the sensor. The D3100 has 11 autofocus sensors, and they do work very well. But the way the V1 can lock onto physical objects and track it around the frame is amazing. Point for Nikon V1. Size and ergonomics. The V1 has a smaller body and uses smaller lenses. It is very easy to place into a handbag or small backpack. Now you can see that the body is rectangular and does not have a hefty grip. There's a bit of rubber on the back here for your thumb and a ridge on the front here to help grab it. Of course, it comes with this handy neck strap as well. The D3100 is very light for a DSLR, and you have this front area that really helps you grip the camera in any situation. And you have this robust neck strap as well. This category is a close call. On the one hand, you have the D3100, which is amazingly light for a camera with all the capabilities of a DSLR, and it is easy to grab. Over here, you have the smaller V1, however, which is a little tougher to grab, but it is lighter still and takes up less space when you work with it, and you're able to just move with it from one place to another without any fuss. Point for Nikon V1. Video capability. Normally, I like video cameras for video, and still cameras for still pictures. But the video capability in still cameras is getting better and better. The D3100 is one of the first DSLRs to have continuous autofocus during video, which is great, except it hunts around a lot, and you can hear the focus motor on the video. And you have no external microphone jack. On the V1, it also has continuous autofocus during video, except it's extremely quiet. The V1 also has an external microphone jack and can shoot video at 400 frames per second and even 1000 frames per second, which I don't picture myself using too often, but it's nice to have. Point for Nikon V1. Fun factor. This is one of the most important categories for me. There are hundreds of cameras on the market. Most are capable of getting the shot. So, why doesn't every manufacturer just make one good camera and sell it to everyone? Well, because we're all looking for something different. The connection that I develop with a camera and the fun that I have with the camera affects the shots that I get. If I'm having fun and enjoying my experience, the photos are better than if I feel like I'm dragging around some awkward equipment. The D3100 is a shooter's camera. It has the classic DSLR feel that many of us are accustomed to. It has a responsive shutter that makes a satisfying click. The controls are at my fingertips, and all of the buttons and dials have a quality feel to them. Basically, when I'm out and about, the D3100 lets me know that she's always ready to get a quick shot. Each time I click the shutter, I want to click more. The V1 also loves to be part of the action. Let me start with the viewfinder. I love cameras with viewfinders, and I was concerned that the electronic viewfinder would be a distraction versus the optical viewfinder on the D3100. I was wrong. The EVF is big and bright. I thought it would lag behind the action. It does not. The V1 has the option of an electronic or mechanical shutter. The basic reason to use the mechanical shutter is for a better flash sync speed than the electronic shutter. The electronic shutter is neat because you can have the camera either simulate the shutter sound or turn that off and have the camera operate silently. The problem I have with the simulated shutter is that I feel less connected to the action. The mechanical shutter fills that need and helps me to feel more like the camera is an extension of my own body. I realize that these tangible and intangible fun factor aspects may sound silly, but as I say, when I'm having fun, I always get better photos. Who wins the fun factor? The V1 is pew 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 fun, but the D3100 is fun like this, like choo, choo, choo. And the point goes to V1. They're both fun and compact, but I want this camera for set and forget purposes, so the V1 gets the nod. Well folks, there you have it. By the narrowest of margins, the V1 wins the deathmatch. Its super fast firing speed, flexibility, stellar image quality, tiny size, and undeniable fun factor of this camera make it the top dog in this deathmatch between two fun-on-the-go cameras. Now that my deathmatch has been determined, I would be remiss not to talk more in depth about how your deathmatch may have ended differently. I want this camera for fun-on-the-go, set-and-forget purposes. I have higher-end DSLR camera bodies and lenses that do the job of professional work and serious shooting. I love them. I could even include the D3100 in that category. For that reason, your deathmatch may have ended with the D3100 as the winner. If you're looking for fun on the go and serious shooting, with the possibility of expanding your camera arsenal for more committed photography, the D3100 is the way to go. If you aren't so interested in expanding for more serious shooting, or you already have that kind of equipment, the V1 could be your best buddy. Okay, before I do this, I just want to say one thing. Whatever you think, both of these cameras would be stupendous to have. It may sound cheesy, but the best camera is the one you have in your hand. However, in this deathmatch, only one can win, and it's the V1. So long, D3100.